Hi there, Prairie Plantgirl here. Today I am out in the garden. Beautiful day. Feels like we went from winter to summer. So today I decided I'm going to finish up planting my cool season crops. It feels like summer, but really we're still getting cold weather in the evenings, so we're still getting down in the single digits in the Celsius. So don't want to get anything too heat loving out here yet, but definitely it's time. I need to get the rest of my cool season crops in. So today I'm going to be planting my seed potatoes. Picked those up at the local garden center the other day. Some onion sets, peas, parsnips, and some radishes, and corn. Now it might be a little bit early for the corn yet, but I'm going to put it in, and usually I have good luck with that. So we'll see what happens. As long as I don't keep it too wet, it usually comes up all right for me. So it's old seed, so I'm going to use it up, see what happens, and then if I need to buy new seed, I can do that. So I'm going to get this set up and we'll get some things in the ground. So the first thing I'm going to be planting is my potatoes. If you've never planted a potato before, what you'll find is you'll be planting a seed potato. So you don't plant the seeds, you actually plant an old tuber. So what you're looking for with the tuber is one that has sprouted some eyes, and you usually want about 3 eyes on it. And you can take one if you have a larger potato, like some of mine that I had here were quite large. So what you can do is just get a knife and just make a slice, just making sure that you still have the eyes on both slices. So this one has 1, 2, and a little one there. So 3 eyes there, and this one has quite a few on it. So what you need to do after you cut them is you just set them out to dry in a cool, dark place to cure over, to get a good scab on the potato, because you don't want it to rot in the ground. So you just cut it, you let it sit for at least 24 hours till it gets scabbed over on the backside, and then they're ready to plant. The house sparrows are up there. They're not very happy with me being here so close to their little nest, but they always get used to me. I'll probably have a few flybys, a few swoops while I'm out here, but they usually get pretty used to me, and they'll leave me alone after we've both been out here for a while this summer. So the first potatoes I'm planting is a carob potato. I'm going to put a tiny little marker here so I remember. Now these are a mid-season potato, and it doesn't really look like it right now, but they're actually a beautiful purple flesh when you dig them up, and purple skin, and a very nice white flesh. And I use them for everything: boiling, baking, roasting. They seem to be a good all-purpose potato, and they store well for me. And I like to store my potatoes and try and get through the whole winter with only my homegrown potatoes. So I enjoy these potatoes a lot. I recommend the carob variety. It's C-A-R-I-B-E. If you can find that, give it a try. So I'm just going to dig a little hole. Just want it to be about 6 to 8 inches deep. And because this is a new bed, I just put some blood meal, added some nitrogen. I spread it earlier, just a couple of handfuls, and worked it into the soil here so that it was ready for the potatoes. So once that's done, it's very simple. You just take your potato, drop it in the hole, cover it up. And you want to leave about 6 to 8 inches or so between them. You're just going to keep doing that. So little hole, cover them up, nothing to it. It's a nice moist soil, but it's not dripping wet. Still a bit cool, so you don't want it too wet or you'll rot your potatoes out. But you can definitely get them in the ground when it's still just a little bit on the cool side. And what I've started doing, and it works quite well, probably not as necessary in the raised beds, but I've started taking the grass from dethatching in the spring and just putting it around my potatoes. Keeps the weeds down, keeps the sun from shining on them, because then you'll get those green spots which aren't good for you. So you get them covered up there, and as the summer goes on, it'll help to keep the ground cool as well. So as I go through, I'll just keep covering them up. So there, potatoes are all in. So like I said, I planted the carob up in the front, and let's say at least 3/4 of this bed is carob. And then I just put a few red Pontiacs at the back. Just, I don't know, a dozen or less. Just a red skinned white flesh potato. Pretty good all-purpose mid-season potato. Over here, I actually was out here earlier this morning and planted this bed. And it's full of Norland, which again is a red skinned white flesh potato. I've never grown it before, but it sounded like it was pretty much all-purpose, but more of a boiling potato. And it's supposed to be an early season. So I should hopefully get some potatoes out of there a little earlier. So I always plant a few varieties of potatoes. Just, you know, different weather conditions can cause different potatoes to grow in a different way. So, you know, some years you'll get the best harvest off one kind, and the next year you'll get the best harvest off the other kind, even though you did the same thing. It just depends on how hot or cool it was, how much moisture there was. So I always recommend to plant a few different kinds, and like I said, I always like to try something different every year, just for fun. So that's the potatoes. Next, I'm going to be working on my peas, and I have a few old Little Marvel seeds and a few Green Arrow seeds. They're just both a nice slender pod, lots of seeds in them. They both come up fairly quickly, and I'm going to do just one sowing up against this little kind of trellis system I have here, and then in a few weeks I'll actually come and put another row in and closer to the edge of the beds. So I just use my hand and make a little trench. Again, pretty simple, just about 1 inch down, about 1 inch apart. You don't really need the trellis. I just like the look, it just tidies it up a little bit more. Sometimes it's easier, if it's a wet year, it's easier because they're off the ground. Easier to pick the peas. But for most, especially if you look for like a bush variety of pea or a shorter pea, you don't really need the trellis. If you're getting some more vining peas, then you'll need a trellis for sure, but for these ones it's not really necessary. So I'm just going to keep going down the row there and do the other side and get these peas in the ground. So there, the peas are all in the ground. Put them across, so like I guessed, I had just enough Little Marvel to put a nice planting across there, and then I put the Green Arrow on the other side of the trellis. I planted some of them just a little bit thicker because I like to be able to thin a few off to use for little young pea shoots in my salads. So if that's something that you enjoy, then keep that in mind. You might want to just sow them just a little bit thicker than recommended, and then you can have some shoots for in your salad and still have peas growing up to eat fresh later. So now I'm going to move over and I'm going to get the corn in the ground. So like I said, I'm just using up some old corn seed here. It's a peaches and cream mid-season corn. So corn, give it a little bit of room here. I'm going to put it up at the back of the garden because of course it grows tall. I'm going to put 2 seeds in each hole because it is old seed. Now the package always says to space them like several feet apart. I've always put mine like 8 inches to a foot apart and just a couple inches deep, and I've never had a problem. They say for pollination you need to plant them kind of interspersed, or in multiple rows. You can't have them just one single row. Again, I don't know how true that is, but I always just do another row, or sometimes I'll zigzag them along. But So this row I'll put one seed just to try and get all the way across. So I'll finish planting these up, and then I'm going to move on and do the parsnips and the radishes and the onions. Okay, so now we're going to do the onions. So onions you can get in two ways. You can get them like this. I believe it's called a set. When you buy them like this, it's like the potato. It's a small onion and you just put it in the ground and it'll grow into the onions. You can also buy them as seeds. Seeds take a little longer to get going. This will come up quite quickly. Or of course you can just go to your garden center and buy some onions already started and pop them in the ground too. That's another easy way. So when you're growing the sets like this, you can space them quite wide apart if you want to grow a nice big bulb, or if you're looking more for a green onion, you can put them pretty close together. Onions don't need to be very deep in the ground, so you just want to kind of give them a little push, and you kind of want the neck sticking up or just below the surface. And once I have these in the ground, we'll move over to the parsnips and radishes, and then my cool season crops will be done. I love parsnips. And parsnips are one of those vegetables that just get better when it freezes. So you can leave them in the ground, just like carrots. You can leave them in the ground through hard frosts until the ground starts to freeze, and then you want to get them out or put a cover on them to keep that patch of soil from completely freezing, so you can still dig them up. Now, so parsnips are about 1/2 inch deep, about 1/2 inch apart, and I just sprinkle them along. If you watched my other video of planting cool season veggies, you'll see that the carrots, I don't know if you noticed, but I just actually sprinkle the carrots in a patch, and then I just kind of fluff the soil up around them. They're such fine seeds. So don't feel like you have to follow specific directions. You know, don't worry about doing it perfect and doing it right all the time. Just get out there, plant your seeds, and grow yourself some food that you know came right from your garden. You know what it was grown in, what was put on it, and it'll just feel good to be eating food you grew yourself. So there, I just thinned some of those out that I got a little bit thicker. But you can always come back later if they come up and they're too thick, just pop a few out and then it's fine. Now, I'm actually going to just, in one row, put a few radish seeds in with the parsnips. Parsnips sometimes take a while to come up, and I just like to throw a few radish seeds in there. They come up quick, and it's just satisfying to see them pop out of the ground and know that something's growing down there. I had quite a few in my hand here, so I decided to just go down the other row too. Oops. They like to be about 1 inch apart, but again about 1/2 inch deep, so they work well with the parsnips. Radishes are a fun seed for kids because they do come up pretty quick. They're a very satisfying seed to plant. So if you're trying to garden with your kids, or your nieces or nephews, grandkids, give them some radish seeds. And they can be planted in like this with pretty much anything, because they grow quick, they mature quick, and they're out of the ground. So you can put them with your carrots or your parsnips or even with your lettuces, and you'll have them out of the ground in no time. So there, I've got my cool season crops all done now.